Welcome to Winning with Annalee. I'm your host, Annalee Leonard, president and founder of Mainstay Financial Group on the corners of Antes and Perry. And yes, we are almost complete with our construction. Wonderful thing. It's been exciting, wonderful adventure, but I got to tell you, I will never do it again. Want to talk today about some of the most important things that are going on in our area. You've heard me refer to before the wonderful group I refer to as the Silver Tsunami. Other people call us the baby boomers. Large group, we're coming, we're like a huge wave. Great thing, but with that also come a lot of the financial complications of age, the medical complications of age, and those all tie in right together. So today what I've done is I've asked Dr. Rodney Guttmann, who is the director of the Center on Aging at the University of West Florida, to come in and talk with us because Dr. Guttmann has done a tremendous amount of research in this area, and what his job is so very important. I want all of you to know about what he's doing, and if you have a need, how to reach him or have him get you to the areas where you need to go. Dr. Guttmann, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to see you again.
Oh, it's so good to see you. Listen, I was reading through all of your marvelous credentials, and I'm not going to read them all because it'll take the whole show if we do that, okay? I know you. I'm sorry, but your first degree, if I am correct, was in chemistry?
That's correct, chemistry.
But you're not a pharmacist?
No, I'm not a pharmacist, but I almost went down that road.
Did you really?
Right. Yes. Well, I was interested in helping people. My cousin is a pediatrician, and so I kind of grew up watching her.
I see.
And going down the medical path. And so I thought about going down that road, which is how I ended up, actually started as a biology major, but finished in chemistry.
In chemistry, and then you went on and you got your Ph.D. in another field?
In pharmacology, which is closely related.
Okay.
So, you know, pharmacology, my thought on that was this, that I wanted to be involved in medicine somehow. And so I thought, well, how could I bring in my passion for chemistry into that? And so pharmacology was a good fit for me, because pharmacology is a discipline kind of chemistry, in that we're looking at how drugs work, how drugs interact in the human body, and that sort of thing. And so my long-term goal was actually to develop some drug one day, and I'm working on that.
You are working on that, and we're going to talk about that. But you have taken that knowledge now, and you've brought it to a whole nother level of what you're doing in research and study of people who have cognitive type problems. Am I correct?
Right. So when I was at UAB, where I got my Ph.D. in pharmacology, I studied Alzheimer's disease, trying to understand the neuropathological changes, what was causing these changes in our brain. Yeah. And then I was at the University of Pennsylvania for 3 years, trying to understand learning and memory, which of course is related to Alzheimer's disease. And then I was, right before I came back to UWF, 4 years ago, I was at the University of Kentucky for 10 years as faculty there, going back into really looking at neurodegeneration, broadly speaking. Done a little bit of work in Parkinson's disease, as well as prion-related diseases, but it's really been an emphasis on, it's always been about Alzheimer's disease, and that's really back where I am now.
That's back where you are now. And Dr. Guttmann very graciously joined our Escarosa Senior Alliance, which you've heard me talk about before, a group of professionals who have joined together to better serve the community of people basically 55 years of age and above, because goodness knows I am certainly not a chemistry major. I'm not the attorney. I'm not. So we are so pleased and honored to have you as a member of that group, because you can come in and teach us what to look for. And I know one of the things you talked to me about was one of the very first things that is lost when a person begins to go through cognitive problems.
Right. So one of the early changes that occurs is kind of Alzheimer's disease is a loss of memory, but also a loss of executive function, which means sort of your decision making. Yes. And one of those early decision making problems that are faced by people is math skills. So being able to do calculations, and so financial issues are one of the earlier problems that people have. And so being part of that group is very important, because I think that for you and others like you, that it is important you are aware of the types of changes that can occur at those earliest signs, because that is the next stage of Alzheimer's research, is that early detection.
Early detection. And I know, thanks to you and your research and what you have taught us, it's helped me already watching my clients and being aware of changes that are, to someone who's not familiar with what to look for, very subtle, but to someone who knows what to look for and knows the client, they're glaring changes.
It can be, that's right. It's very difficult because Alzheimer's is a very slow progressive disorder, so it sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like cataracts, where people don't realize they have cataracts, and they realize after they have the surgery, realize, oh my goodness, my vision was really this horrible. And for people who are surrounded by the person with Alzheimer's, it can be difficult to assess. And what you have is, not infrequently, sort of that aha moment when you realize, oh my goodness, I realized something was wrong 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and now it's too late. The process of Alzheimer's disease progresses in such a way that's real difficult to deal with once it gets too far.
And it's a sad disease because very often it lasts for a very long time, and you watch someone you love become someone else. So one of the things you teach people is the need for a support group. I don't think anybody in a family can go through this alone.
It's almost impossible. The stress on caregivers is just profound. I mean, dealing with someone with other forms of diseases, while they're difficult and challenging, it's particularly challenging with someone with dementia, because each day is going to get a little bit worse. It's going to be a little bit more difficult. They're not going to remember you as easily, and you're sort of watching the loved one just disappear before your eyes.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. And so we emphasize quite a bit about the caregiver, because that is really one area where we can make a difference in people's lives, is on the caregiving side.
And with the caregiver, it's not just an emotional thing, it's also that support group, again, back to the finances, because all of a sudden you'll have someone who maybe didn't do the financial part of the house. Couples kind of do that. They fall into roles.
Right.
And all of a sudden somebody has to not only take care of a loved one, they now have to take care of finances. They've got to take care of everything, and it gets to be overwhelming.
It's extremely difficult. I think about it like with just having children, how difficult it is. Like right now in the summertime, you're looking at this and going, okay, my kids are out of school, we've got jobs, what are you going to do? Well, imagine that with you're already an older adult, and now you have to, as you said, you have lots of different balls in there you have to deal with. You have doctor's appointments, you have grandchildren, you have children, and it is a very difficult situation. And so it does take a large number of people, which is why I'm pleased to be part of the group, because you cover many different domains in which people will need help, and so it makes it a lot easier to kind of be a one-stop shop as much as you can to help people.
Exactly. That takes away some of that frustration. And when I go back to the financial aspect of that, one of the things I notice with the caregivers, very often when I see in a widow or widower who did not take care of the money, is all of a sudden they have the money, they're responsible. First of all, they're very vulnerable at that point. Their emotions are on edge.
That's right.
And they'll see this much money and think it's this much money.
Right. Yes, and you see this frequently, as you mentioned. Typically only one person's managing the finances. And there is a lot to know about managing finances.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, don't we know that? Yeah.
Right. And it does make people vulnerable, because as you become isolated, it becomes easier. We talk about elder abuse and scams. You become susceptible to those types of things. And when you're dealing with someone with Alzheimer's disease, you are probably also an older adult yourself.
Yes.
And so those decisions are difficult for you just because of age, the lack of familiarity, the lack of confidence to be able to make those decisions. And then also people might be afraid to ask for help because they're fearful of the stigma that goes along with that. They don't want you to know they don't know.
I see. And one of the things I very often find, same way, again with the widows and widowers, is all of a sudden there are the extended family members that come with the handout because they realize you now have the purse strings, you're not real sure of what you're doing, and you've got a soft heart.
That's exactly right. We see this. We're doing some research with the Porch Band of Creek Indians, looking into this type of issue with financial exploitation, and you see it there, and you see it as you see it in your line of work. It happens far too often, and we have to do a lot more about educating the population about what are the impacts of dementia, not just on the individual, but the caregiver who's providing that, and how that impacts their ability to plan for their future.
For their future, do they have a plan? That's the big thing. Do they have a plan?
Well, even people like me aren't fully planned out, and
we're getting you there.
That's right.
We're getting you there. It's taking us a while, but we're getting you there. And I think that's just so important. And one of the things I talk to my clients about is sometimes you almost have to set up a little barrier between you, the purse strings, and the rest of the family. I actually have one client that has a daughter who is very, should we be nice and say, needy.
Right.
And we have come up with the rule that when the daughter goes to her and wants money, the rule is she has to come to me to get money.
Right.
Well, of course, she doesn't want to come to me and explain why she's making $80,000 a year and is going to her mother for money, who is living on a very small pension and Social Security. So sometimes setting up that barrier does a lot of good.
Well, that's important. Guardianship is a very important element inside of this. Public guardians or private guardians, and certainly trustees. So I'm sure you set up trust accounts for people for that
all the time,
to protect them from that, because most abuse is done by family members. People believe that it's professional caregivers that are creating these problems, and the realities are it's about 80% of elder abuse and mistreatment, including financial exploitation, which is usually the first one.
That's
usually
the
starts
first one.
with financial exploitation. 80% is family members or close friends.
Members. We're going to take a short break now, and then when we come back to Dr. Guttmann, I want to talk about programs you and I are working on and developing to help the community.
Sounds great.
Wonderful. Good. We'll be right back.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Mainstay Financial Group offers advocacy and personal financial guidance in a caring environment. That's the heart of our practice. At Mainstay, we're dedicated to exemplary service and a caring relationship with our client, not with a number. Plan for the future now with Mainstay Financial Services.
When you're finished with your food or beverage cartons, toss it in the recycling bin. Because every carton is recyclable and can be turned into useful paper products. Put your carton in the bin with your other recyclables and let them start a new life. When the contents are gone, let the carton live on. Recycle your cartons.
Welcome back to Winning with Annalee. Today we have Dr. Rodney Guttmann with us, who is the director of the Center on Aging at the University of West Florida. Dr. Guttmann and I are talking about the research, the wonderful things that are going on at the University of West Florida, and the unbelievably long, stressful situation that people sometimes go through when they are diagnosed with Alzheimer's or someone you love is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I want to spend some time talking about the program we're developing. Before we do that, tell me a little bit. I mean, this is a disease that has no cure, am I correct?
That's right. There's no treatment or cure. It's the only disease in the top 10 killers that has no treatment or cure, and so that's what makes it very important we get engaged as soon as possible to deal with this devastating disease.
But
if you have cancer or heart disease, there are some treatments out there. For Alzheimer's disease, there's nothing.
There's nothing. But aren't you doing research, and Dr. Keller over in Baton Rouge at the Pennington Center, aren't you doing research to see if you can come up with something.
Yes, so Dr. Keller and a long laundry list of many scientists, of course, across the globe are working on this challenging problem. He does a number of clinical trials and is interested in exercise and nutrition because that's an important variable, we believe, in a healthy brain and a healthy heart, and therefore probably potential protective factors for Alzheimer's disease. I, on the other hand, am looking at early diagnosis, so I'm looking at developing biomarkers so that we can identify people as early as possible.
Stop. Biomarkers.
Right.
Now, is that like a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, or
something like that? Except at the cellular level, indeed. So what we're looking for, we know that there are changes that are. So we were talking earlier about how a loved one might recognize that something has happened, but then they rewind in their mind. They go, wow, I think this has been going on for much longer than that. And so the theory is that the changes that are occurring that are leading you down the path of dementia, or in the specific case of Alzheimer's disease as a form of dementia, are happening decades before those symptoms occur. So for that to be happening, changes are already happening in your brain. And the idea is that potentially there is a way to assess your brain and find out those earliest changes that are occurring before it shows up that you're not remembering where your keys are. But we can actually take a sample of your blood, or maybe take some what we call cerebral spinal fluid, so take a tap out of your back.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
It's not fun, but we're hoping that we could be able to use those what we call biofluids to assess when you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s and know if you are already on the path to dementia.
So you're looking for those little markers all along the way.
That's right. So part of Alzheimer's disease is neurodegeneration. So the cells in your brain are shriveling and dying and not functioning properly. Well, some of that can be found, evidence for that can be found potentially in the blood. And so those would be happening when you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s. And so my research is focused on looking for those markers so that we can tell you when you're in your 30s or 40s, you are potentially on the path for Alzheimer's disease, and then we could maybe institute a therapeutic approach to begin to slow the process.
And I think we have to emphasize, Dr. Guttmann, that we don't want people to get into a panic mode. I mean, believe me, we all forget the keys. I don't think anybody can ever say they haven't walked into a room and say, what did I come in here to get?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, now I know what it is, because today we live on such overload.
That's right, and there is normal forgetting. I mean, everyone forgets from when they're 10 years old till they're 80 years old. It doesn't matter. There is normal forgetting. So forgetting where you parked your car, forgetting where you put your keys, but there's an abnormal memory loss that occurs too. It's when you start forgetting things you know. Like maybe you worked on cars and suddenly you can't remember how to repair a car. Well, that would be very unusual. Like how to get to the golf course. If I got lost with a golf course, someone would probably know there's something wrong with Rodney.
Oh, the'd definitely be something wrong with you and me both.
Right. We know how to find the golf course.
That we can find.
That's right.
I mean, we have no problem with that. But I think some erratic behaviors, like maybe not just forgetting the keys, but putting the keys in the refrigerator and putting the milk somewhere else, just things that have no correlation.
That's right. Things that don't make any sense. That's exactly right.
Yeah. I found with some of my clients in the financial side of this that sometimes with that erratic behavior, you will find a change in the approach to money. All of a sudden spending too much or using charge cards to excess. Have you found that in your research?
Those could be signs of dementia. There are many forms of dementia. So there are what we call frontal temporal dementias, dementia with Lewy bodies. These are also, dementia with Lewy bodies particularly is common, or not as common as Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's disease is by far the most common.
That's the most common.
Dementia with Lewy bodies is also right up there. And so those do come with some other issues such as that you're describing, but certainly Alzheimer's disease, it's possible that those things are occurring.
Yeah. So you have to be aware, but again, don't panic if you're going through the normal daily routine.
I tell people this: if you are worried about Alzheimer's disease, I'm probably not worried about you having Alzheimer's disease.
Because you're aware enough to know.
You're aware of it. That's right.
You're aware enough to know. That makes me feel better. I haven't yet forgotten the dogs. I think if ever I forget them, I know we got a problem.
We know we have a problem, that's
we,
right.
We definitely know we have a problem. So early awareness, having a team of people that we can work with, and again, back to the Escarosa Senior Alliance, which actually we founded at Mainstay several years ago, and we saw the need for the fact of having teams of people, because you go through this, you start seeing this with someone that you're helping, you know they need a good financial advisor. We may have to start pulling social workers in. I mean, what are some of the other things you might need on the team?
Home health care is another big one. I mean,
Yeah.
I find it to be much more common. I mean, aging in place is kind of the academic terminology, though. It's found its way at other places. So aging in place, people in construction, actually. So making the home safer environment
Yeah.
for them to be. Occupational therapy, certainly physicians are obviously going to be involved in the process, so either an adult neurologist or a clinical neuropsychologist to help. Spiritual leaders, also very important component. That is another element that has started getting more attention about
Yes.
the needs that people have in that regard.
And I think we need to talk just a little bit about the ability to take away the stigma of seeking a counselor, of seeking spiritual help, especially for the caregiver. Because I think a lot of us who grew up, you know, in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, there was this stigma put on anything that had to do with counseling. You had counseling, you probably needed a psychiatrist, and you probably should be committed. But that's not at all what it is.
Absolutely not. People should not view this as a sign of weakness. I think that's the stigma that goes along with it. And there, I mean, people who do work in this field are professionals. They understand that. They know when an older client comes in, it's a different consult than if you're dealing with someone who's younger. And the idea is, you shouldn't feel afraid. You shouldn't feel its fear. It is absolutely normal. Many millions of people are dealing with this horrible disease directly and indirectly, so you're not alone.
You're not alone. And there are support groups, there are counselors that specialize in helping people go through these steps. And I think those are the people we see come through this in a strong manner. It's just like the financial world. For some reason, a lot of, especially in, understand what I'm saying, especially some of my male clients, they tend to think because they are the male, they should be able to handle this financial stuff and know everything there is to know about it. Well, my goodness, they're out there, they have a job, they're raising children, they have a spouse, they're maybe dealing with their own illnesses. You cannot be expected to know all of it.
It's impossible. I don't know everything there is to know about Alzheimer's disease. There's just so much information out there, and it changes all the time. And I know in the financial world, it's changing just about as rapidly.
Well, you're like I am. You are learning all the time. All the time.
All the time.
And I tell all the young junior advisors that the day in our business that number one, you're bored, that number two, you feel you know it all, that's the day you need to walk out of the door.
I don't disagree with you. Absolutely.
You're done.
There is something to learn every day. It's impossible for there not to be some new information.
Yeah. And you know, that's why you and I have started working together to pull a program together that is going to be a series of classes that we're going to use to help people in the community that are out there and introduce them to some of the people in this group that they could call on. I mean, what a concept.
Right, exactly. You know, we do a fair amount of education out in the community, but this will be a very concentrated effort, and it'll be very intimate. I was sort of thinking about this, about the intimacy of it. I mean, we do large programs, right? But it's not very intimate, and you know, the availability of people during the talk or after the talk is very different than will be in a very nice home-like setting where you'll feel very comfortable. And then we're going to have local experts who understand what it means to be part of Northwest Florida and Pensacola, and we understand the culture, understand the different needs. And that's another element that people don't necessarily realize about the importance of their culture and how you make decisions.
Oh, it's amazing. You know, I'm from Louisiana, you know that, and you better, if you go into Louisiana, know how we think.
That's right.
Because we're think a little differently sometimes. But that's the good Cajun culture, that's part of it. And I think that's part of the good Southern culture. Would you do me a favor?
Anything for you.
You're a good man. Would you come back again next month and we will go in depth about the classes we're putting together, what each class is going to be about. We'll talk about who we're going to have that's going to be the instructor for that evening, or we should say the educational sharer.
Right.
And we'll go through all those things, and we'll look forward to seeing you back with Winning with Annalee, and Dr. Guttmann will be back with us, and we'll fill you in on these wonderful classes that are coming in. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you. If you need me, call me 437-3127. We'll be glad to help you any way we can, or get you in touch with Dr. Guttmann if we need to.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Mainstay Financial Group offers advocacy and personal financial guidance in a caring environment. That's the heart of our practice. At Mainstay, we're dedicated to exemplary service and a caring relationship with our client, not with a number. Plan for the future now with Mainstay Financial Services.
When you're finished with your food or beverage cartons, toss it in the recycling bin. Because every carton is recyclable and can be turned into useful paper products. Put your carton in the bin with your other recyclables and let them start a new life. Recycle your cartons.